Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation podcast, where we discuss the exciting innovations that lie ahead for organizational ground transportation. Each episode, we cover topics tailored to those resolving transportation-related challenges and provide tips, tools, and trends that will inspire you to stay ahead of the curve. And now, here's your host, Daniel Perez.
Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation. Today, we have a special guest, Mr. John Perry, Director of Strategy and Growth at DPV. John, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here with you, and I appreciate the invitation.
I appreciate you as well. So, John, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in the transportation space, and what is your role?
Sure. Well, I am a West Virginia boy. So I grew up in West Virginia, met my lovely wife who was from Connecticut. She lived in West Virginia for 9 years with me and decided a little over 4 years ago that she wanted to move back to Connecticut. So I brought a lot of experience from a business owner, small business owner, entrepreneurships, and specifically in the logistics space, managing a rock quarry. So I got my initial experience in delivery of aggregates, where I managed, the sales, business development channels, and I also managed the fleet and dispatching and scheduling of delivery. So brought that experience with me. It's certainly a different world, but at the end, there's a lot of similarities to what I do for DPV and what I did back in West Virginia.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate the context. So when it comes to what I normally call you, is you're the sort of guru and expert in the managed transportation sector. So tell us a little bit about your role and what is it that you do in the marketplace?
Sure. Yeah. So, we wear a lot of hats here at DPV, which is great. Specifically my role for DPV is, business development, corporate strategy and growth throughout the Northeast markets. And that sort of captures the northern New Jersey, New York City, Connecticut, and the Boston markets. With that, that involves, it's a very large, it's a vast marketplace for business development and sales. And so we run into a lot of different scenarios within the transportation industry, whether that be, being an owner operator for organizations, campus shuttle, and specifically managed transportation services. And it's a very niche market for DPV and also for the industry as a whole.
Got it. So tell us a little bit about the managed transportation services. Sort of what programs do you focus on, and how is it different from the traditional transportation management programs?
Yes, that's a good question. Managed transportation, from what I see, it's sort of a bifurcated service and to two different industries under the transportation landscape. You see it a lot in the courier space, where managed transportation services helps organizations sort of offload the internal responsibilities of identifying efficiencies in execution. But in the transportation space, let me back up a little bit. So I'm kind of confusing myself. But in the shuttle transportation space, there are sort of two different categories that we are encountering, and one specifically is where the organization owns their own shuttles or owns their own vehicles, right? Or two, an organization looks more for a technology-driven resource or solution, right? And so that's generally what we encounter, and we do a good job at identifying those. And we I think we've worked well with both of those scenarios at DPV.
So what I'm hearing is there's managed transportation programs that you normally sort of help Fortune 1000 companies procure, whether they have their own fleet and they need a third party to manage their fleet, or a third party to come in with their own fleet and manage the transportation program on the corporation's behalf, right? And what I've seen as well is that there's companies that they just need drivers. So you guys go in and execute sort of the mission and execute the transportation programs on behalf of the company. And what are the main components and process when it comes to like managing the transportation programs?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I do, right? Is conducting that research, that market research, and wearing that consulting cap as I'm, navigating the marketplace. And it's sort of different per prospect or per client, where, the full spectrum of a managed transportation service provider can include a project manager, whether that be an internal or remote full-time equivalent position, or and then also including a client success manager, a fleet manager for those organizations that own their own vehicles, and on down to the individuals that are sort of client facing, which are chauffeurs or highly trained chauffeurs on a daily basis. So it just really depends on, and again, like I said, this is a niche market. It depends on how we deliver our our service to our clients or our partners.
Got it. And what are the main benefits that companies can expect when they adopt, managed transportation solutions or electrical vehicle programs where you have experience conducting this programs and implementing these programs, which are the most hard to implement?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, it's the bottom line, right? And a managed transportation provider can help an organization do that in several ways, right? We do a good job at this, and it's identifying technology in the marketplace that helps or allows for efficient transportation. Whether that be heat maps, identifying, centralized locations where we can pick up and drop off employees. So one, efficiency, right? Reducing the cost or the time of travel. And then ultimately that trickles down to many departments within the organization, specifically on the human resources side, where it frees up the human resources to focus on the core business of the organization, whereas the managed transportation provider can take that over for the organization and manage it, and bring our industry expertise to the organization.
Got it. And the other thing that I noticed too is just the fleet maintenance. As we both know, fleet maintenance could be one of the biggest challenges when corporations are running anywhere from 10 to 40 or 50 buses at the same time.
Right.
You want to elaborate a little bit on that regards and what it takes to sort of implement the right systems in place to make sure that this things go smooth as well?
I mean, it is. It's a struggle, right? Maintenance is a struggle, and I know that from my past life. and I see it. It doesn't change, right? Industries may be different, but it's all the same. And I can't think of a scenario where it's good for an organization that excels in a certain field, whether that be, technology, sports, higher education, wherever that may be, and then want to take on the struggles and the pains of maintaining their own fleet, right? Whether that be staffing mechanics or inventory for parts, and just, the overall logistics of getting that vehicle that's out of service back on the road, right? Yeah, and it just makes me laugh because there are there are industry professionals out there that do that on a daily basis, and that's part of that managed transportation service provider solution.
Thank you. And what sort of challenges are you seeing in the sector when it comes to transportation programs? And probably if you want to address that, and then let's transition a little bit to electrical vehicles, hydrogen self vehicles, because I know this is a hot topic that a lot of corporations are very interested in as we transition to this new wave. And I know that you are in the weeds working on these specific programs. So what is it that you're seeing so far?
Yeah, I'm sighing. I don't know where to start. The overall struggle that I see, and I love the spirit around renewable energy transportation. But what I see a lot of is that sort of price tag shock, right? And the ambitious goals that a lot of organizations have adopted over the past 5 to 10 years of going carbon neutral by 2030, 2035, 2050, whatever that may be. I don't think that they understood what the expense was going to be to get there. Specifically, you can see it on the other, within other business units of an organization, but we have the direct experience with transportation. One, the vehicles are almost double, comparatively speaking. So, and then two, the lead time to get those vehicles are almost triple to what it would be to get a sort of a standard diesel or gas fuel vehicle. And then three, what I'm seeing now is that because there are some programs in place, is that the electric vehicles a lot of times need supplemented by additional vehicles because the battery life doesn't support the service, right? It doesn't support the schedule of service, right? So you're seeing a lot of supplementation by either diesel or gas fueled vehicles because it's more cost effective to do it that way. But there are other challenges, Daniel, and I think that we'll get there. It's a matter of time. Just like any technology, it improves and enhances over time. And it's sort of a bottleneck, Daniel, and I think the industry sees it. Your state, local, and education, they get preference on the manufacturing of these vehicles, right? And they're going all in on it, which is great, but there's definitely some struggles and some shortfalls.
Totally. But do you see more of the electrical wave continue on the horizon, or more of the hydrogen?
I believe the wave continues. I don't know that it's going to continue at the peak that it's at, because you're going to see other sustainable fuels sort of taking that market share, right? Specifically the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, right? And we know that the federal government invested a lot of dollars into these hydrogen hubs throughout the United States. So there's a lot of R&D out there that's going to support, mass transportation. And eventually, I don't know that one will overtake the other, but they're definitely going to run in parallel. So you're going to see a lot of that market share gobbled up by hydrogen fuel cell vehicles.
Got it. And John, to sort of transition a little bit, if you were the chief procurement officer at a Fortune 1000 company, what will be the things that you would like to know as you procure a transportation management service? What are the top 10 items that come to top of mind?
Well, one, I think what's important is credibility, right? Before bottom line, and before any other monetary benchmarks, it's credibility. There's a lot of organizations out there that are continuing to, and I'm not knocking, the entrepreneurships. I'm not knocking the technology space, but technology is technology, right? And we're seeing a lot of tech platforms taking some of the market share from the owner managed organizations. But at the end of the day, they don't own vehicles, right? They're still outsourcing that. They don't have internal mechanics. They don't have internal fleet managers. So they're still outsourcing that. They're still outsourcing effectively everything other than the efficiency that the technology provides for an organization.
Totally.
So what I look at is what I think is important for an organization, and as a chief procurement officer, is credibility, one, right? And then two, being able to adjust to the changing landscape, right? So how does an organization or a managed transportation provider take our goals, and let's say, our greenhouse gas emission goals, right? How do we say, all right, so it's 2020, let's call it 2025 now, but 2030, we want to go carbon neutral. We want to do that by taking our fleet, or taking our current transportation program, converting that to a sustainable energy transportation program, right? So what does that involve? Buying power. So I want to look at an organization that has the buying power to do that for our organization, right? So I think those are the top two things.
Got it. I think the other thing that it would be important to emphasize here too is the time to implement these contracts.
Yes,
It's been a critical item here to keep in mind, that these programs, in order for everything to go smooth, it typically requires anywhere from 90 to 120 days in order for a sweet implementation or a smooth implementation, because there's just so many different pieces of the pie and the logistics perspective that goes into these programs. So
I agree, and I think we spoke to that a little bit ago, but I'll take that a step further, because what I see, a lot of times, it's nearly impossible to implement a service given the timeline that procurement managers award a contract, right? So as a chief procurement officer, and knowing what I know from this side of the business, I would give an organization at least 12 months from the initiation of an RFP to the award of the contract, and to allow them 6 months to procure the vehicles and to implement their service.
Yeah, well said. And just to transition a little bit to, always in this podcast, we talk about the future of transportation. So we talked a little bit about electrical vehicles. What are your thoughts when it comes to flying vehicles, autonomous vehicles? Do you see that in the short 3-year, 5-year, 10-year horizon? What is your crystal ball telling you?
Oh man, you know what? I was lucky enough to be a part of an RFP opportunity with the state of Connecticut Department of Transportation a couple years ago now. It was a managed service provider, and they were talking about their autonomous vehicles, and apparently they're a huge success. They have a few in their fleet, and I just don't know how I would feel on one of them, though. You know, we were talking about taking a test drive. I just don't know how I'd feel. Daniel, honestly, I don't know what the trend is for that. I don't know what the trend is for flying vehicles or what the outlook is for that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more autonomous vehicles on the road in terms of mass transportation, and then also on the on the flying vehicle side. I think we're going to see some much larger drones here in the future.
Totally cool. And interesting to sort of change perspective here. What is the best advice you ever gotten in business, John?
Best advice I've ever gotten in business: get up and work. Every day, put your head down and get to work. No matter how you feel, no matter what you did the night before.
That is very well said. And I always say that the easiest things in life are the ones that we typically don't do, whether it's sleep good, eat good, all the simple stuff. And sometimes we overcomplicate it.
We do, right? And what I say this a lot, Daniel, and it's and I think it goes a long way. But getting back to the basics.
Now, what is your top 2 favorite books?
My top favorite books in business.
In business, yeah. Personal
growth. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a good one. Yep. And actually, that was an assignment by you for the sales team. So thank you for that. And then Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill. That was a really good book.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich. I'm on my 4th read. They say that the secret to it is to read it at least 33 times.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for me, but.
All right. John, again, thank you very much for sharing all your expertise when it comes to managed transportation programs. You're a legend in the transportation sector within a short amount of time. So anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap things up?
No, Daniel, I appreciate the platform and in many ways. And keep doing what you do, man. Doing good things.
Thank you, John. And how can listeners stay in touch with you and hear more about the managed transportation programs?
Yeah. Well, there's many ways you can get in touch with me. I have, a nice LinkedIn following. So you can get in touch with me through LinkedIn. And then my email will be provided here in the video. You can reach out to me via email. My cell phone is always on. I'm always working. So I'm always in network. But I do have a balance between work life and personal life. But in this space specifically, you got to be plugged in at all times.
100% agree. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you very much again for your time. Thank you for all the listeners for being generous with your time, and stay tuned for our next episode. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks for tuning in to the future of ground transportation. We appreciate you coming along for the ride. If you found value in this episode and want to hear more, please make sure to subscribe to the show.